Welcome to Battle English, where the pen is mightier and the language is the true battleground. There will be 3 rounds. Round 1, critique combat. Round 2, grammar gauntlet. Round 3, lesson showdown. Remember, this is a fun, friendly, educational battle. Discussion of topics, questions, and answers is encouraged. And for everyone watching at home, you can learn more about Battle English at WeSpeakEnglish.com. In today's battle, we have Geoff Anderson, aka Fluent American, aka the Flue-tenant, taking on Colin Munro, the Silver-Tongued Brit. The judges of today's battle are Gideon from Let Them Talk TV and Jason, aka Fluency MC. Hey guys, are you ready? Let's go! Grammar Gauntlet. Are you ready to start round 2? In this round, we will ask you questions about the English language. You'll have 10 seconds to think about your answer and give your response. Remember, this round is focused on accuracy and correctness. Try to use rule-based explanations.
They're 2 people and living among 2 different cities.
So this is an interesting sentence. Not quite sure what the context would be. The main thing that jumps out to me is the use of the word among. So there are 2 people living among 2 different cities. Now, it's sort of, it makes sense, but the word among we normally use when something is, within lots of other things. You might say, well, there's an expression, there's a cat among the pigeons. So if you imagine a cat in a big crowd of pigeons, that would be the correct use of the word among. I think the fact that we're talking about 2 different cities and cities being static things that don't move is one thing that makes the word among inappropriate there, because we don't say I live among a city, even though it does surround you. The other thing is the fact that we're talking about 2 people. So I think what the speaker is trying to say is that, there's 2 people and they live in 2 different cities. I think that's what they're trying to say. So yeah, the use of the word among there is the main point.
Okay, and Geoff, what did this sentence say to you or not say?
It's a similar issue with among. I probably would have replaced it with in for that same reason that among kind of implies a much larger quantity. I think in is going to be a more natural preposition here. The other thing that's kind of jumping out is that conjunction and. I probably would just remove it. In fact, when Colin said it, he just took it out. Like there are 2 people living in 2 different cities. The one thing I will say that I think is working well, and I'll go back to the and what happens with removing it, but I just want to point out just kind of like the parallelism that's happening with like 2 people, 2 cities. And English really likes that. English loves when things are able to kind of pair together across sentences. So if people aren't familiar with a concept called parallel structure, it's something I just strongly recommend because it appears everywhere. Going back to the living, so basically you have 2 clauses that you're trying to join together. It could have been 2 independent clauses. It could have been there are 2 people and they are living in 2 different cities. But basically what they did is they're like, I don't want to use a clause, I want to use a phrase. So they took off the they are, and then you're left with the living. But the problem is, again, that and is in the way. So that's why you need to take the and off. So then it would just be turned like you're just describing people. Like there are 2 people living in 2 different cities.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Okay. So, Judge Fluency MC, are you ready to give us the second sentence?
Okay, guys, that brings us to our second sentence. Let's go. He's inherited his wealth by his belated uncle.
Looking at this one, so he's inherited his wealth. To me, I'm not seeing any issues there. So he's inherited his wealth, the contraction with he has, which sometimes I see students not contracting, like not being like confusing he's, which is understandable because it can, if you just have it by itself, it's like, is it he is it he has? So some of that confusion. But besides that, I think the biggest issue is happening in the second half of the sentence with our prepositional phrase, by his belated uncle. I think prepositions are, if I had to rank like the most difficult parts of any language, I would probably put like articles, if your language has articles, and then prepositions. We can argue about the order of those two. I think it's very frequent for students have issues, for instance, in this case, with from versus by. So I would personally opt for from. So from his, and instead of belated, I think they meant late, because I'm guessing, again, if we're inheriting something, I imagining, unless the uncle did something to cheat on insurance or something like that, I'm guessing the uncle's dead. So my guess is that instead of belated, it probably should be late. From his late uncle is how I would adjust the second half of this.
Final answer. Okay, thank you, Geoff. And Colin, what were your thoughts when you heard and read the sentence?
Yeah, I agree. I think the main thing is the by. It should be you inherit from somebody. And it's very interesting that the word belated, the first time I read that, I didn't pick up on belated being the totally wrong word, which I should have done, but that it's funny, I guess, because of the word by, that just drew my attention. But yeah, it's very interesting how in some contexts late and belated mean the same thing, but not in this context. So late uncle, or late uncle would be the best there. But yeah, nothing else to add on to what Geoff said.
Do you think wealth is a good choice of adjective? Can you actually inherit wealth? There's nothing in a will saying that I leave my wealth to my nephew Colin.
Well, it's quite vague. I don't think it's wrong. Obviously, his will would be more specific. But in this context, wealth,
you inherit.
It's a noun.
You inherit a fortune. You inherit money. You inherit property, but you don't inherit wealth. Which
you can inherit wealth. I think you can. Yeah.
We need to put that in quotes and put it in Google to see if there's a collocation. I'm sure you'll find there is one. Maybe not as much as the others you mentioned, but I think inherit wealth is common enough. I may be wrong.
Yeah. No, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, are you guys ready for the next one?
If I was you, I will quit my job behind that.
Okay, so this is a question about conditionals. This is a conditional structure, but it's a bit of a mess. And to be fair, conditionals are quite complicated, and something that really kind of doesn't make sense in it. Well, there's rules, but they're very confusing. So it's understandable that somebody would make mistakes with this. So if I was you, so that's the condition, and then the outcome, I will quit my job. Now, this presumably would be a hypothetical situation. So I think it's okay to say if I was you, but it would be better to say if I were you. Then you would say I would quit my job. So we keep the tense the same, even though it's sort of a hypothetical situation. So if I think it would be better to say if I were you, I would quit my job. And then when it says behind that, that's also not quite right, and I'm not quite sure what they're getting at there. So behind that, maybe after that, or if they had a negative experience in their job. So talking about conditionals again, there's several different types of conditional. I'm not sure. I think this is the second. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly which conditional that is. Talking about a hypothetical situation, that's what's the important thing here. I've recently been debating with myself a little bit because I've been doing some videos on tenses, and I've seen some videos that talk about conditional sentences as if they are a tense. Personally, I disagree with that. because they don't follow the same rules of tense using like auxiliary verbs and things. So it'd be interesting to know what other people think about that. In the sense that if every sentence needs to be in a tense, then conditionals, you'd need to call conditionals a tense, because sometimes sentences are a conditional. But yeah, they're very different from the 12 tenses. So in terms of the grammatical structures. So yeah, interesting debate.
Okay, that is quite interesting. Geoff, you have a face that gives you away, especially when Colin mentioned the videos that he's been watching about the tenses and all that. So I'm interested to hear, what is your feedback on this sentence?
No, unfortunately, I don't have anything striking to add. Colin changed it the same way I would have. If we're going super standard, if I were you, I would quit my job after that. If we're being a little bit more open to things, probably the more frequent way you're going to hear it is, if I was you, I would quit my job. If you're going even more reduced, if I was you, I'd quit. Like, I'd quit my job with the contraction. And the way I interpreted, again, the behind it, I also interpreted it as after that. Like, it seems like, again, there's context. So this is just imagining a context. Someone's telling you a story, you're responding to the story. It's something related to work. So this implies kind of a negative situation at work. And that's why I think that after that situation, that's kind of implied by everything that's said here. So that's why I think after, again, we're just seeing some preposition confusion, like after versus behind. Behind typically referring more to like a physical space, after having more the temporal aspect to it. Yeah, and treating conditionals as tenses, that's pretty whack. I don't know what they're doing. But besides that, yeah. It's like, what? People would be crazy.
Well, okay, I'm glad you agree with me. Yeah, because I just saw a video with the title "All Tenses, Including Conditionals." I was like, but they're not tenses. But yeah, I mean, if you define a tense as every sentence needs to be in a tense, then I guess you could argue that. But they're so different that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
it breaks the logic. If you want to teach what tenses are, it's useful to look at the logic, how we use the auxiliary verb and the main verb and the subject. And then, so if you're saying that's tense, then it makes sense. There's a consistent logic between all the tenses. But if you throw in conditionals and say they're also a tense, then it just breaks that logic. It makes it very difficult to learn and teach.
Fluency MC, are you ready to provide us with the fourth sentence?
Yeah, everybody. I think we're already on to sentence number 4. Check it out. At the supermarket, she bought 5 potatoes and 6 carrots.
The thing that jumps out the most is just the apostrophe S, which would show, in this case, singular possessive, but we're not possessing anything. We're just trying to buy some vegetables. So take off the apostrophes and you'll be in pretty good shape. One thing I do like is the order. English in general likes to do small then big. It's like 5, 6. So I do like the fact that they put 5 potatoes before the 6 carrots. And they did great on prepositions. So like, we're always really happy about that. So get the golf clap. That's all I got.
Great soundtrack. And yeah, good. Okay, so Colin, what do you think?
Well, I think Geoff's nailed it with that. Yeah, when we put the apostrophe in on potatoes and carrots, it's saying that something belongs to the carrot or belongs to the potato, which is not what we're saying. Potatoes and carrots cannot own things. I'm not sure whether maybe there should be a comma or could be a comma in between supermarket and she at the supermarket. Well, no. No, I think that's fine as it is. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? What about the word order? Is that okay for you?
You mean between carrots and potatoes and carrots?
Do you want to move to at the supermarket?
Oh, actually, yeah. You know what?
Just more natural,
so
not
you
incorrect.
talked about.
Yeah.
No, yeah. That's interesting actually, because because Geoff mentioned the size thing, but yeah, now I can see what you're getting at, Gideon. Yeah, I think in the way I speak, saying carrots and potatoes would be more natural. That seems more idiomatic.
No, I'm saying,
might
as
be
Geoff mentioned already, got
the size.
what I was hinting at. No, that maybe after the supermarket should be at the end.
What she bought potatoes and carrots at the supermarket.
Wouldn't that be
sounds
more
more
of a style question?
Yeah,
That's a
definitely.
style
But it
thing.
sounds
I
more
don't think-
natural to me, no?
Well, it depends on the context. So we can't. I don't think we can criticize that.
Absolutely, it could be
We
blah
don't
blah
know the
blah
context.
at the drugstore, at the supermarket. Right, like putting intonation.
We don't have the
on-
context. It's true.
Show
yeah.
exactly. So we can't say that it should be at the end. But maybe on its own, I agree. If it's just on its own, I would probably put it at the end.
I have something to ask, basically. Looking at the sentence, do you think a native speaker would ever write this sentence?
Maybe an anally retentive one.
Yeah, because going into the detail, we don't really say. We would just say some carrots.
Yeah.
Just bought some carrots
veggies.
and potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the number of them might be relevant if someone's asking you to buy them, sort of thing. You need to get the right amount. But if you're just telling someone that someone else bought some carrots and potatoes,
We don't know how big the potatoes are anyway. So if you're saying get me 5 potatoes,
yeah, you would need to specify the
might
type
be
of potatoes. and things like that.
shortchanged.
Yeah, but in this context, it's reported speech, right? We're talking. It's somebody talking about what someone else did. So presumably the type of potato and all that's not relevant. So I think in this context, it might be better to say some potatoes, some carrots.
But Colin and
And
Geoff, this may be what, or maybe not what Andrew is saying, but is it possible a native speaker would use possessive incorrectly when they meant a plural? Is that possible, or is that just?
It's a very common mistake.
Yeah, it's called the greengrocer's apostrophe, isn't it, or something? Yeah, it's got that's the name. So
maybe not so egregious as this, but definitely right misuse.
Yeah, definitely.
For
we see that all
plural.
the time.
It's not just an English learner, non-native English speaker learners.
Okay, everyone. So, Judge Gideon, are you ready to give us sentence?
I'm ready.
5?
I'm ready. They invited the strippers, JFK, and Stalin.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what the context of this would be. It looks fine, grammatically speaking. The only thing is should there be a comma between JFK and? And is this what the Oxford comma is all about? I'm not 100% sure, but Geoff's giving me a thumbs up, so yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think so. I think the Oxford there's debate about when you've got a list and we put the word "and" between the last two, and we'd put a comma between all the others. But there's the debate about the Oxford comma is should there also be a comma between?
So what's the possible misunderstanding then?
There's no debate. There should be a comma. I just want to be clear. in my opinion.
But it has to do with what Gideon's getting at. Is there an issue with understanding or not? So 90% of the time there isn't. But 10% of the time, I'm just making this up. If you don't have the Oxford comma, then it changes it, right? It has to do. I'm not going to say anymore. There's a term that Gideon used earlier or last week that might be useful here.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose reading that sentence on its own, you might be confused and thinking that it's not a list, that JFK and Stalin are the subjects, and that, I mean, that wouldn't be quite right. But sometimes people might say that. You might say, they went to the shops, John and Colin, So yeah, that could create some confusion, and putting the comma in there would help with that. I wonder whether the order should be a specific way. I'm not sure. Strippers, JFK and Stalin. Would it be better if another way? I guess it depends on the context.
I think if you added J. Edgar Hoover, then it might have been appropriate for stripper, apparently. If the rumors are true.
Maybe.
Geoff, do you have anything to add, or maybe a different opinion about this?
I'm very, very biased I really like the Oxford comma. I think it's great. One of the greatest inventions of English. Good job. But it's not necessary, so you don't have to have it. But then you do run into some ambiguity issues. So there is, as Colin mentioned, there is that chance that JFK and Stalin could become they, but there's also the chance that they could also become the strippers. I don't know how else to put it. JFK and Stalin could become the strippers. I don't know who would want that, but there you go.
Can I just ask you then, why are you so passionate about the Oxford comma?
I think it's great. I think aesthetically it's very pleasing. I talked about parallel structure. Like, I think just having that little repetition is really nice. I think that it makes a clear demarcation. And there are times where, again, there can be some ambiguity issues that come up if you don't. What's the like the panda eats, shoots, and leaves?
Oh yeah.
Or like whatever. I forget the entire context, but you know, having commas, not having commas can have an impact on how you interpret a sentence. And if you put the comma in, suddenly everything is magically clear. So I'm a big proponent of the comma.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm actually very close to Oxford now, so I suppose I have to.
Claim it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, I got to jump in though, and let's not forget, like when someone's saying the sentence, the difference, whether it's, you know, apposition, that was where I was thinking of, or a list, is completely different, right? So Gideon, you read this one, right? So how did you read it? I don't remember. Could you read it again?
They invited the strippers, JFK, and Stalin. I'm not sure I read it like that the first time, but
so if
I'm trying to make it clear.
If it's apposition, which is actually how I thought of it, you guys might think I'm crazy. I mean, I am crazy. I really thought like JFK and Stalin, it's more likely that those are like weird stripper names than they actually invited strippers. So for me, it was they invited the strippers, JFK and Stalin.
Because of course the Oxford comma doesn't work in spoken English. So
well, right, and that's why I think it's so important in written English, because
yeah, exactly.
Can't hear how it sounds. So without it, it could be either way.
Absolutely. If there's any ambiguity, put it in. Yeah.
So there's a big difference between saying they invited the strippers, JFK and Stalin, and saying they invited the strippers, JFK and Stalin.
Yeah, they invited the strippers who are named, or
because that makes it sound like you're naming them. Yeah, like you're saying.
So, Judge Fluency MC, can we have sentence number 6?
Okay, guys, here comes sentence number 6. Are you ready? He's got such a large amount of friends that you could never count.
The sentence to me just feels incomplete. I feel like we're missing an object or some sort of phrase. So like that you could never like count them all or something like that. There's such a large number of friends or a large amount of friends that you can never count them all. Reference back to the friends. Besides that, just another option in terms of vocabulary choices. If I were saying this, I probably would have said number instead of amount, but it doesn't mean amount is wrong. And the other thing that's happening, so you have this adjective clause that you could never count in its current form. And grammatically, it's doing the best it can, because when you have an adjective clause, you really want it to go as close to the noun that it's describing as possible. And that's, in this situation, that's about as close as it can get to amount, because amount is really the noun that it's describing.
Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think again, Jeff's nailed it. I do think the word amount is, well, maybe not wrong, but definitely not the best word, like just said. Because you would use amount more with the sort of uncountable nouns. You know, there's a large amount of snow, or there's a large amount of but I guess you could say a large amount of people. So but still large number of people is it feels better.
Okay, judges, anything you want to add? Maybe a hint?
I have a few things. It's interesting what you say about amount and number. I would say number is correct, but I understand that a lot of people would say amount with accountable. I think it's a grey area. A lot of native speakers would use it. Personally, I would say number. Also, I don't know if this counts, but got such, even if you use number, got such a large number of, is that really a very idiomatic?
Yeah, it might be more natural to say a lot of. He's got a lot of friends.
Yeah, so many, a lot of so many. Yeah, something like that. I would just, it just sounds a little bit cleaner.
I really feel like with such a useful structure for students to know. I mean, it's wonderful that this person used such correctly with a noun. They didn't say, so large amounts. So that's great. They're using such correctly. But in this case, the expression that's really useful is so adjective that, right? That would be like the so many that, using many as the adjective. So when you said so many, the first thing I look at when I see this is so many. Like, it's great to use quantifiers, a large amount of pollution or a large number of, and you can see the way that you guys are kind of thinking, like, is it okay to use amount with countable nouns? It's shifting. Like, you see it happening, like, compared to I mean, it's at least in North America, it's crazy how many times now you hear amount. I'm still so prescriptive in that way. I'm like, no, it's countable, not large number of. But yeah, that's really shifting. Not quite in the grammar books yet, but probably we'll get there. But I think it would be great if we're talking about teaching this to say, this is nice, but he's got so many friends that you could never count them, and using the pronoun at the end. I think that's the most natural.
Okay, everyone ready to roll with sentence number 7?
He's got a lot of friends, even more acquaintances.
Interestingly, this uses the expression a lot, like we were talking about, that they should have used in the previous one. So I'm okay with that. I'm not sure about between friends and even, whether it should say and even more acquaintances, or maybe just a comma there would help. But other than that, I would understand it. Nothing else really jumps out at me. I think it's mostly fine.
Geoff, what do you think?
This is the correct spelling, yes. A lot probably should be separated. Space lot. So a lot of friends, even more acquaintances. Yeah, and then you could probably get by with a comma just between friends and even. I wouldn't be opposed to the conjunction and. He's got a lot of friends and even more acquaintances. If you did it with and, you could keep the comma or you could remove it. More frequently, people are going to remove it. It's like he's got a lot of friends and even more acquaintances.
I just want to ask a question. If you're just talking with the Oxford comma, you're saying you'd be okay with a comma there, even though what follows it isn't an independent clause? If we use and, I mean, a conjunction, you'd be okay with a comma?
No, you're right. Yeah, I probably wouldn't put a comma there because you don't have another like verb and things like that. So there's no even subject and subject switching. So in those cases, yeah, I would just use and.
Let's move on to sentence number 8.
And here it is. They met at university and worked together in hospital.
So we got some like British English versus American English things going on. That's not my forte. British English, some of the little grammar things I really can't speak to. So I'm going to defer to Colin. If you wanted this, if you're using this in a North American context, a lot of times it's university is just not the word of choice. Like, you don't usually ask someone, like, oh, like, what university did you go to? Like, it's college. Like, what college did you go to? North America is pretty unique in that aspect, because I think pretty much globally, university is going to be the more kind of standard form. But in the US, if you want to sound more natural, college, like, they met in college, not at college, they met in college. And work together. Hospital in general, in American English, you would expect it to have a the. Again, just sticking to my own area of expertise. For your other types of English, there are better teachers for that. And work together in the hospital. In the hospital is fine. I probably use like at. They work together at the hospital. Personally, I would use at, but I don't think in is necessarily wrong. Yeah, so if I were doing this, again, in a North American context, I would have personally done this as they met in college and worked together at the hospital or at a hospital.
Yeah, so in the UK, college is a different thing to university. College comes between what we call secondary school, which you call high school, and university. Well, not necessarily. College can be a different thing in its own right. So now some schools will do that high mid-level between university and the basic basic high school education as well. That we call those A levels, or they used to in my day. I think it's all different now. And then you go to university. But then there's some colleges that do that middle level where you can do your A levels at a college. That's what I did. But then colleges also do more vocational courses and things like that. We have things that we call BTECs and stuff like that, which then you don't necessarily do them to go to university. So yeah, we just have a different education system. So this sentence seems fine to me in that sense, that they met at university. Yeah, that seems fine. And work together in hospital. Yeah, I think Geoff mentioned all the things. Maybe better to say at hospital or in a hospital. Nothing else to add.
Are there no missing definite articles somewhere in that sentence?
So maybe you could say the hospital, but you wouldn't say the university. You definitely wouldn't say they met at the university.
Colin, did you think they worked together when they were sick?
Yes, yes, that's my question.
No. The way I understood it is they studied together at university,
right?
and
they got chronic illness.
But my understanding of in hospital, even though I'm not from the UK, is that it means the same as in a hospital or in the hospital. But I in hospital means you're a patient, no?
Yeah, okay. I see what you're getting at. Maybe that's right, but that's why I said I think at's better. I just couldn't really.
Right, but it sounds like you were
properly.
agreeing with he was pointing out that in American English versus British English, but I think even in British English, in hospital has a different meaning. In hospital,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, no, with the British American, that was just referring to the word university and college.
Which is totally spot on. I don't know, Gideon, you know what I'm saying, right?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, but I mean, it's possible that they were chronically ill. And then during their time, they shared a room and they were working together. But in that case, I would say in hospital. But if they were employed by the, I would use.
Yeah, no, I think it's far more likely that they were employed there, and that's why at sounds better.
But that's not the question about at. It's about.
I don't think it's at. I think it's the definite article, right? In a hospital in British English, no?
Yes.
In a hospital as opposed to in hospital. But Gideon, you should take this.
No, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely. That is spot on for because if you're working, you say I work at the hospital. You don't say I work at hospital. You could say in. I think in or at. I'm not sure. I think British is more likely to be in, wouldn't it? I work in the hospital. Yeah. I work at the hospital. I now I'm confused myself. But anyway, but my point is about the definite article. I think if you're unemployed there, you'd say the.
Yeah, and in American English, the equivalent would be like if you said like, oh, where's your friend today? Oh, he's in the hospital. What happened? Oh no, he works there. No, you wouldn't say in the hospital is in hospital for us, right? Meaning you're a patient. Where's your friend today? Oh, she's working at the hospital or in a hospital.
Yeah, so it is really different in British and American.
Once you do in you're saying you're sick.
My friend's in hospital means you're sick. My friend works at the
American
hospital.
English, you would be in the hospital.
Okay.
We have to have.
So hang on. Can I just say, are you saying to say and work together at the hospital is wrong?
No. I'm saying there's a very interesting. I actually know the etymology of this. It's really interesting. It has to do when hospitals started and American English broke off from British English. But anyway, in hospital, meaning you're a patient, for American English is in the hospital. In the hospital. It's like, but it's really interesting because we don't say in the school, we say in school. And that's why in university, at university, why are we using this indefinite? So the definite articles is strange here. You could be in prison. We don't say in the prison, but with hospital, we say in the hospital.
So you say the doctor works in or at hospital or the hospital?
A hospital or the hospital.
So British English should say the Colin, if you agree with me, the doctor works at the hospital, works at the works at the hospital, not works at hospital.
Yeah.
The British English makes a lot more sense.
The doctor got food poisoning and he's in hospital.
Yeah, like in school, in
Yeah.
prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes more sense without the verb.
Okay, everyone. So, yes, sentence number 9.
If you wish to speak more concise, use less words.
You need to use the right words, and concise is not the right word there. It should be concisely, using the adverb form, because adverbs affect the verb. So we're talking about how the person speaks. So it should be the adverb concisely. And the other thing would be to use fewer words rather than less words. Although that's right, and I think that's right to say fewer rather than less. That's one of those things that's really creeping in to the language, using less in this way. So normally we would say less with uncountable and fewer when it's countable, but less is getting used more and more for either. So it depends how strict you want to be with the old-fashioned original rules, or whether you want to use the language in the way that everyone else does. Yeah, so those are the two things. Concisely should be the adverb form, and fewer if you want to sound more old-fashioned.
Agreed. I think even in like super informal contexts, like you can see people even reducing adverbs into adjectives. But like you might hear people say like, oh, like go quick versus like go quickly and things like that. So the concisely, yeah, if we're going like standard, quote unquote, then yeah, I would expect that to be concisely. Less, again, if we're going standard, I would expect that to be fewer. But besides that, I don't see anything else to comment on.
That's interesting that you say that you could even do that with the adverb. I think that might be something more in American English, because I think we would stick more to the adverb forms in British English. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree.
I just have one little challenge. I swear it'll be quick. Guys, what would you ever advise someone to maybe consider the word wish here in terms of like the situation when they're saying a sentence like this?
It does make it sound a little formal. I would probably say if you want to speak more concisely, use fewer words, or no, use less. I'd probably say less words. Either
I was thinking that, but I mean,
opinion.
concisely is a kind of appropriate word for a kind of more formal sentence too.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
It didn't jump out at me. I was just thinking that is something we see a lot, right? As students, I mean, I'd see overusing sometimes wish that way when we use it more often.
Yeah, so wish maybe is appropriate for the register
more often, right?
Okay, so Judge Fluency MC, could you provide us with the final sentence for this round?
He sang so good, and his mother fawned him.
Towards the end of the sentence, my guess is they wanted the phrasal verb like fawned over him. I'm guessing. And in the beginning, I mean, if you're going standard, you would expect to get back into adjective versus adverb, sang so well. But you will often hear native speakers also use good, like to do something good, things like that. So you will see good used as an adverb in that way as well. So we have two different clauses, and they do have different subjects. So in theory, you might want to put a comma after good, but the reality is most native speakers don't really know how to use commas, so most native speakers probably wouldn't even write that with a comma. So those are the big things that stand out to me.
Yeah, agreed. It's definitely a difference between British and American English, though, with using good as the adverb. I think in British English, we're definitely more likely to say well. When we say he sang so good, that does sound very more of an American thing. So yeah, that's something we do. People do it in British English as well, but I think we definitely do it less, and it's more of an American thing.
How do you answer the question? How are you doing? Do you say I'm doing well, or do you say I'm doing good? American and British, I mean.
I would say, I would often say good in that context if I'm just saying good. But if I wouldn't say I'm doing good, I would say I'm doing well. But if I was just answering with one word, I'd say, yeah, good, thanks. Well, that's not one word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And Geoff, with the American British.
So someone asks, "How are you doing?"
Mm.
Like I would agree, like doing well. But you would also hear doing good. You would also hear just good. I think the more interesting question is when someone asks you, "How are you?" And then you get this interesting reversal because a lot of times native speakers will actually say well, even though grammatically that doesn't actually make sense. Like grammatically, you would actually need to say good.
Yeah, because
unless you're healthy.
The thing to remember is good is the adjective. So, and yeah, if you say I am good, then you're using an adjective to describe yourself. You're not describing how you're doing. That's the thing.
But it's interesting. It's also like one thing we forget, I think, is like what people are sort of have in their heads. So if you say, well, like things are going well, like, are we kind of truncating? Are we cutting off? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it sounds strange. Like, you know, how are you? Well, right? You know, I'm good, adjective, I am good. So I think often when we're saying good, it's like we're kind of feeling like describing the noun, even though the structure of the sentence might be more adverb. But I have a little challenge here. Can I put it out there? I see something here that really you guys haven't pointed out that reminds me of a sentence we had earlier. The structure, something we had earlier. I don't know if that's enough to go on.
Do you want to throw that in there? He's saying, so what that his mother fond of.
Not that you need it, but I feel like the person most likely wants to say that. Not that it's two separate things. Like he sang so well, one thing, and his mother praised him, or you know, or fawned over him. Like you said, to me, it's not two different things. It's
so do you
more
think,
that.
Is it fair to say that adding that there clarifies the idea that her fawning is a result?
Exactly, it's like a conclusion.
Rather than
if the person says,
yeah.
"Oh my God, that's not what I wanted to say," I want to say two things, but that aren't related, but they seem so related here, as you said, like the result that I think it's the so that.
Yeah, it clarifies that
So,
it's result. Because she could be fawning over him anyway.
Right.
But if you add that, it makes it clearer that it's a result of him singing so well.
Okay, that is the end of round 2. Now, our judges will give their comments and award points. Great job to both of our challengers. Okay, so Judge Fluency MC, how do you think round 2 went?
I think it went all right. I think, you know, we were talking about how, I mean, this is really used to grammar and vocabulary because there's well, the pronunciation did come in a tiny bit in one of the sentences. Ironically, it was something I pointed out that and Geoff didn't, but generally, right, we're looking at the use of grammar, you know, structure and vocabulary. And I don't think anything, you know, major got by either of them. I think it was more how well they, you know, get back to experience. And Geoff, even though he does pronunciation, talked about how his first love was grammar. He definitely has, you know, the terminology down. He can find stuff very quickly. So there are a few times where I felt Colin could sense something was a little off, and it's not that he didn't explain, okay, this is a problem with a conditional, or this is you know, a problem with using an infinitive, but he was a little hesitant sometimes, which I understand. Again, I think it's down to experience, I'm guessing, because I feel like this is a super passionate guy who's super smart and observant. So I think it's more that, you know, there were moments where Geoff, like, you know, very quickly, boom, could, you know, kind of find the mistake or what was awkward. So yeah, there were a couple of things I wrote down here. You know, Colin wasn't sure about conditionals as a tense or not. For example, you know, we were talking about there are two people among two different cities. He was saying that among didn't really make sense, but he didn't really say the collocation is in a city. Geoff didn't either, for that matter. So both of them, I thought, could have said it's more about collocation than trying to understand the meaning. There was one, they met at university and worked together in hospital. To me, that was interesting, because I felt like in this round, like, yeah, there's nothing huge they missed, but again, they don't have as much time to really analyze them. But they both saw that at university, that's correct for in British English, but in hospital or in a hospital, it was interesting that they both had different reasons for why that didn't seem right. That to me were not what they really needed to figure out, which is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gideon, that in hospital really means you're sick.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the vocabulary, certainly they pointed out, like when vocabulary wasn't used well. I think both of them, again, to me, very similar. I don't know about you, Gideon. I didn't feel like one of them screwed this up, or one of them really just like, wow, just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. I think they both did an excellent job. And if I were a student and my teachers, I'd be delighted, because it explains things so clearly. Because I'm a judge and I have to do what I have to do, then if there's any difference, I would say that it's true that Colin missed a couple of things.
Yeah.
Such as the in hospital. I'm sure he knows the difference. I'm sure he knows
exactly.
Big. It works in hospital, works, and he's in hospital, he works in the hospital. I'm sure he knows the difference, but on the spot in that moment, his explanation wasn't clear. And there's one other thing, I think I can't remember which it was now, with the word order. It could have been, he could have gone a little bit deeper and changed word order on some, or simplified some of the language, which was a bit clunky. Geoff, on the other hand, he came at it straight between the eyes, and I think he got it right. It was spot on as time, and he added this extra level, the icing on the cake, with the pronunciation. No, did we do pronunciation? No, there's no pronunciation that one this round.
Not really. Yeah,
no.
we're talking. We're talking about.
We're talking about the
we're
clips,
talking about they invited the strippers, JFK and Stalin, or they invited the strippers, JFK.
Oh yeah.
That one, but nobody seemed to see it the way that I did. The strippers could have been named JFK and Stalin, and it was apposition, not a series of things.
That's true. Or maybe they're not strippers taking their clothes off. Maybe they strip paint. So if you have the same word in American English,
right,
paint strippers.
But I agree. I mean, here again, it's I keep saying the same thing, but I really feel like it's just experience, and how often, if I had to guess, Geoff's been confronted with something to correct compared to Colin. That's just my feeling. So for example, if you wish to speak more concise, use less words. I mean, just I think Geoff could go right to, we need an adverb for concisely, and fewer is the quantifier. I don't remember what he said, but he was using more of the terms more quickly. Not that Colin couldn't figure it out. And in the end, like you said, both of them, I mean, any student would be happy to have teachers as competent as they are, who could explain. I mean, I think no problems there.
Another interesting thing I remember popped up was the Oxford comma.
Oh yeah,
and they loved that. I mean, both of them was like, we love the Oxford comma, we would use it. So I mean, it's something they both could agree on. I cannot remember.
Well, Geoff was like adamant. It's the only way. Is the Oxford
I mean,
comma.
if it's simply a series of things, it doesn't matter. But like we saw here with the apposition, if you don't have a comma, it can change, the meaning of the sentence.
Yeah.
Exact. Commas could be deadly in some cases. As you just said, Judge Fluency, they could change the meaning of an entire sentence.
Sure.
And when it comes to it, I do agree. Geoff was point on, he was straight to the grammar, the rules, how it goes. And especially, we have mentioned this, the university, college, because of its different meanings in British and American, it might have a different answer altogether. I'm not sure. And that was the great thing about this battle. We have one of each with the challengers, one who's focused on the American literacy and the grammar, and the other with the British literacy and grammar. And I think that's why they, on some points, they agreed. They would say, I completely agree, or would find a different mistake.
Like it's like an Easter egg hunt. Are you sure you found all of the candies we've eaten? Like, you know.
Okay.
Exactly. So, speaking about the Easter egg hunt, who do you think takes round 2?
Again, very similar, which is good. I mean, to have 2 teachers come on and it's not close would be bad for a number of reasons, I think. Not the least of which, like, you know, what can we learn from watching these teachers? We wouldn't want somebody on, you know, who just was a train wreck. So yeah, I think, but yeah, on this one, again, I think it's down to experience as far as how quickly and how articulately they could explain what's awkward about the sentence or what's wrong with the sentence. So I would give it to Geoff. But again, just, you know, 1 point more or 2 points more. I mean, I wouldn't give Geoff a 5, so that means he's a 4, and I wouldn't give Colin a 2, so he's a 3. So it's 4-3.
Okay. So 4 to Geoff and 3 to Colin. Judge Gideon, how about you?
It's interesting what you say, Jason. Well, because I was thinking along the same lines, because I thought Geoff just great. He hit. I was going to use a baseball analogy, but he hit a home run. Is that right? No, do people say that? I don't know.
Yeah, they do.
I should talk about cricket rather than baseball, I think.
You know how there's so many baseball idioms in English. It's interesting. It's interesting how some have moved over to UK English actually too. But yeah,
a lot of them,
hit it out of the park.
Ballpark figure, hit out of the park,
or hit a home run,
So do correct me if I'm using those analogies.
No, they're both.
I thought he got it right. I'm gonna give him a 4, and I'm going to give Colin, just because maybe he overlooked 1 or 2 things. I'm sure, once again, also, I'm sure he knows all this stuff. The pressure, the lights, the battle, the judges peering into the camera,
the whole setting,
the terror of it all. He may have overlooked a small point, so I'm going to give him 3, same as Jason in the end.
Okay, that's round 2. Stay tuned for round 3. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next round and our future battles. Click subscribe now.
Battle English at WeSpeakEnglish.com. Do you agree with the judge's decision? Write a comment under this video and tell us your opinion. Learn more about Battle English at WeSpeakEnglish.com.